You can cry on command.
Many options, but they are usually very fast. And that is why I decided to create this. Welcome to Free Talk, the show to help you learn English the fun and simple way. Ready? Hello, you, and welcome back to Free Talks podcast. Welcome to the episode number 2 of this podcast, which is actually the podcast number 3. But on the episode 0, we only talk about the introduction of this podcast. I told you the structure and the sections and all that. And now in the episode 1 and in this episode, I am talking about topics. I am discussing some information. And of course, the topic number 1 and the topic number 2 were chosen by me. I selected those topics because I don't know any information from you yet. So I am hoping that after you listen to these first 3 episodes, you can send me your suggestions, send me the topics that you want to listen to in the podcast, and also, please, give me your feedback. Tell me, do you like this podcast? What do you like? What you don't like? Let me know. I want to make this podcast better for you. Okay, so in the episode of today, we are going to discuss a topic that I selected it first because I think it's a really interesting thing to know. I think the information is interesting, but also because it's something that everybody can relate. I think there are no exceptions, or maybe just a few exceptions. And what I am talking about is one thing that a few years ago you didn't even think about. It was not part of your life. It was just something there, but it was not really about you. But now I am sure that you probably cannot live with it, or I am maybe exaggerating. Yes, we can live without it, but our lives would be completely different without it. And of course, I'm talking about the internet. The internet, that thing that we don't know how it works, but we just use it and we love it. We use it for everything. Yeah, just before we continue, think about that. Think about why do you use the internet for, and how do you use it, and how often do you use it? Is it really a part of your life? Or maybe I am just exaggerating. I don't know. But I will tell you something. The internet is something that we use for a lot of things. And right now, for example, if you are listening to this podcast, it's for one reason, because we can use the internet to transmit this information. In a different time, in a time without the internet, it will not be possible for me to give you this information, to pass along this information to you, because there was no medium for it. There was no way to do that. But now we can do it. And you see, the process of giving this information to you is really simple. I just sit down in front of my computer, behind my microphone. I use a software program, and I start speaking. And I start speaking what's on my mind. And then I press stop. I create an MP3 file. I put it on the internet. And then you go to the internet and you pick it up and you listen. The process is that simple. But all the things, all the machinery behind this, it's incredibly complicated. I don't know how it works, but I assume it's complicated. Now, before we talk about how internet has an impact in our lives, let's just talk a little about its beginnings, about its origins, how it was created. Well, the official date of the creation of the internet, or this thing that we are using and now we call the internet, goes back 40 years, in 1969, more than 40 years. In 1969, it was created as a departmental program, actually used in the military department of the United States, and the objective of this was only to share information and keep in contact the people that was working in that particular department. It was not open to the public. So it was not the exact internet that we know and use and love today, but it was the antecedent of it, the background of it. But this is the official date, 1969, when they say this is the network we are using. But I found something that I considered really important, and this is about a man named Licklider from the MIT. The MIT is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He was a scientist, and in August 1962, he was writing some memos, some documents, and he was discussing what he called a galactic network. Galactic network, yeah? Today it sounds like science fiction, right? But in 1962, it was the vision of this scientist, and this is what he wanted. He imagined a globally interconnected set of computers through which everyone could quickly access data and programs from any site. Okay, so we are talking 53 years ago. 53 years ago, one person said, I want to connect the world using computers. And that is exactly what is happening right now. We can connect with everybody in the world within just seconds, 2 seconds. You take out your cell phone and then you open, Facebook or WhatsApp, and in 2 seconds you are talking with a person in a different continent, millions of miles away from you. Millions of miles? I don't know if that's correct, but you get the point. Very far. And actually, his dream, his idea came true. It is actually what is happening now. But it was not always like that. The beginnings of the internet are really, really different. This is 50 years ago. But the internet as we know it today, the internet we know and use today, it is maybe 10 to 15 years ago. So because when the internet was made public, when the internet was open to the public in the beginning of the 1990s, people didn't know what the internet was. They were like, what is an internet? What can I use it for? Why do I need to use it? I am very fine with my telephone and my mail and my television and my radio. I don't need an internet. But from that first decade in the 90s, from the 90s to the 2000s, the internet started growing, and then it started appearing some web browsers and some services, and now you could access the internet from your house, from your computer, and then it became a tool for work, and then for school and all that. But I just want to mention to you the numbers, how the numbers have changed from the beginning to now. The changes through the years. For example, in 1993, the number of websites that existed in that year was only, listen to this, 130. 130. That was it. If you wanted to look at a website, you didn't have a hard job. You just had to look 130 websites. It was like that. By 1996, only 3 years later, the number of websites had increased to 100,000. That's impressive, right? Only 3 years and they grow 100,000 websites. But now, check this. By 2012, only 3 years ago, what was the number of websites? Do you have any idea? No? 1 million? 2 millions? It was 634 million websites. Do you imagine the amount of information that you can find in 634 million websites? That's crazy. And then, let's talk about Google. Google, that company that you use for everything. When you don't remember the date of something, or you don't remember the name of that movie, or you don't remember anything, or you are doing homework, or you are doing research, whatever, Google is your best friend. Let's talk about the number of queries that Google received or that Google managed. First, what is a query? A query is a request for information or a request for something. So when you go to Google and you type on the search bar, why does my cat hate me? And you type that and you click enter. That thing is a query. You are asking something to Google, and Google will respond you. That's a query. The number of queries that Google was managing in 1998, when Google started working as a search engine, it was only 9,000 a day. 9,000 queries a day. By 2007, only 9 years later, they were managing 1.2 billion searches a day. That is 438 billion queries every year. And by 2012, only 3 years ago, the number of queries was 3 billion searches a day. And do the math. How much is that a year? 1.2 trillion queries. I don't even know how many zeros you have in that number. It's crazy, but that's what it is. There are a lot of people out there and they have a lot of questions, and Google is responding a lot of questions. So that's just to give you an idea of how much the internet has changed in really a short period of time. We are talking about 1993, 1995. It's crazy. And now we use the internet for everything. The internet is something that we cannot live without. It's in everything we do. You don't know how to go to a place, you open Google Maps. You don't know what is the timetable for the movies. You don't know when the movie you want to watch is going to start. You go to Google. You need to do some homework for the school. You go to Wikipedia. You need to watch a video, or you want to watch the new video of your favorite music band. You go to YouTube. It's all there. Everything is in the internet, and all we have to do is open your cell phone, open a browser, and then click whatever you want to know, and the information returns within seconds. It is amazing. What it's not that amazing is that maybe we are not using the internet at its full potential. Maybe we can do a lot of other things with the internet, but whatever, it makes our life easier, so we can enjoy that. We are going to finish this section of the podcast here. I would like to know if you are listening to this podcast. Of course, you are using the internet. How are you using the internet here? Are you using the iTunes podcast application? Are you using Stitcher? Maybe you downloaded the audio from the web page and now you got it in your cell phone? How are you using the internet to listen to this podcast? And more importantly, how are you using the internet in your everyday life? How important is the internet for you? Just tell me. Do you think that you can live one day without internet? A week? A month? Okay, so that is the question for you today. Do you think you can live without the internet for one entire month? Yes or no? How do you think your life would be different without the internet? Okay, so that's it. We are going to finish with this section of the podcast here. Let's go now to the section number 2, and now we are going to have a word on pronunciation. Okay, so on the word on pronunciation of this episode, we are going to talk about intonation. Statement intonation. Statement is when you use, basically is the basic structure of language. So when you have like a person or doing an action or a thing doing an action, that is a statement. And we are going to talk about the intonation, how you should change your intonation when you say a statement. And in this case, I would like to tell you this. It says, intonation or pitch change is primarily used to introduce new information. Intonation or pitch change. So pitch change is when you change your tone. For example, when you say, what I want to do, you are changing your pitch. And then he told me, that is the pitch change. And they say that the use of the intonation is basically or primarily used to introduce new information. So this means that when you are making a statement, when you are saying something for the first time, your intonation, your stress is going to go on the nouns, on the things or the people or the places, but not on the actions. For example, in this sentence, we have the sentence, dogs eat bones. Dogs are, of course, the animals, but they are not an action. They are an animal. They are a thing, dogs. Then we have the action. The action is eat. The action of eat. And then we have another noun, another object, which is bones. So in this case, dogs and bones are the new information. They are the nouns. So they are the words we are going to stress, and we are not going to stress the verb. So the sentence sounds something like this: dogs eat bones. Dogs eat bones. Dogs eat bones. Notice there is like a little reduction on the volume when you say eat. Dogs eat bones. Dogs eat bones. Now let's look, for example, at this one. Jerry makes music. 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 Or the kids like the candy. In this sentence, kids and candy are the new information. Kids and candy are the nouns. So we don't say the kids, and we don't say like the. We only say the kids like the candy. The kids like the candy. The kids like the candy. Yes? One more. John. John lives in France. John lives in France. John lives in France. John lives in France. Okay? John and France are the new information. The action lives is not going to be stressed. The preposition in, indicating the place, is not going to be stressed. We only stress John and France. John lives in France. John lives in France. Okay? So that is the point on the pronunciation for today. So again, what is your homework? You need to find these examples in a real life. You need to find them like in a book or in an article, or when you are listening to something. Pay attention to how people speak and make notes, make a mark on the things that they are stressing, and you are going to see that this is the normal way an American person speaks. Dogs eat bones. Jerry makes music. The kids like the candy. John lives in France. Okay? Perfect. So that's it. That is the end of the section number 2. And as I told you, the section number 3 is about responding to your questions. Still, I don't have your questions. But please, in the moment that you listen to this podcast number 3, start sending me your questions, your queries. Send me your queries and tell me, what do you want to know? How do you like this podcast? Is it good? Is it not? How about the duration, for example? The last episode was 40 minutes ago. I told you that 40 minutes ago was not my intention. I wanted to make this podcast shorter. But it is difficult. Now it's 19 minutes. I wanted to make this podcast something between 12 and 13 minutes. It's complicated to keep the time short, but I will try in the future. So please, after you finished listening to this podcast, let me know. 1, what topics do you want to listen to? And 2, if you have any questions, any recommendations, any suggestions, any complaints, if you don't like something about this podcast, let me know. Maybe you don't like my voice. That's going to be a problem, but I will see what I can do. Okay? Thank you very much for listening. And don't forget to go to visit www.freetalkingles.com for much more content. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. And please, don't forget, keep it simple. See you then.